All right, how's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? Good? Oh, hey. Yeah, it's a very normal day. Nothing different today. So, welcome. Welcome to school. Welcome to DMA 216 again. Your handy dandy, reliable 3D modeling, make your brain itch class. I wanted to remind everybody that this weekend coming up is Global Game Jam. There is opportunity for up to 30 points extra credit, depending on how much participation you'd like to do. And for context, that's like currently 2 assignments, but possibly, or one hard one, or one harder assignment as the class progresses. And if, let's say, you don't really have the bandwidth to like make a whole video game and learn how to do all that, because that's a ton of work, you just do your homework on site with it and observe it, that's also some extra credit. And that's access to the N209 computer lab where you're sitting right now, or N250, which granted, I don't think we'll have Maya, but this classroom will, and N207 will. And also there's food. And if I ever get my hands on some money that can give students food, I am going to give you guys food. Okay. Yeah. Yes. So there's like pizza and subs, and I think there might be coffee. I'm really fighting for coffee on Saturday at least. So join us. If it turns out that you're like, oh, this is actually kind of dope and I want to make a game and make some art for people, even if it's just kind of my rinky dink little stuff, dude, awesome. Awesome. You don't get a bad grade on your participation here. It's only a health potion to the HP score that is your grade. Like that's all it is. You can't get any harm from doing this. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. This link, which I will paste in our Canvas. Let's see here. I'm going to put it right at the tippy top where it says getting started. URL link. Global Game Jam 2025 right there. I'm going to put this right at the top. Very first thing, published. So if you want to, you can sign up there. If you don't sign up, I won't be mad at you. And you can still participate even if you don't sign up. Okay, cool. All right. How are we feeling about Bender? Old Bender model. Thank you for your message. I just reposted the link and it seemed to fix it. So maybe I posted a bad link. I don't know. But for those of you that are curious, in the Bender the Robot stuff, I've got our class recordings here, and then the same assignment last quarter recorded. Now, it's not the same class. Sometimes assignment details do change. I don't think it did for this one though. Questions are definitely not the same. So this was really more for anybody who wanted to jump ahead. If you're somebody who's like, look, I want to keep going, I want to get this done, you can follow along on Bender's part 1 through 4 here from last quarter. But the classes and stuff here that's so beneficial to you is that you get to participate and ask me the questions and those get recorded. So that's why I think every quarter is a little bit different. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's open up Bender. Yeah. Go. Not too dark? Yeah.
Left click the mouse and it'll point it out and it doesn't show on it should be like a orange color.
I don't understand the question. I'm so sorry. Okay, you have a cube. Okay. Okay, that's because you're right. Okay. So come back over here. Hold down right click. No, hold down right click. No, select face.
Oh.
There you go. Okay. So for that, and I'm going to get this in the recording for you, because I really want, this is something you have to understand fully to continue in like some of the other stuff we do in class. And that is the sub selection like thing, what it is. So whenever we select an object and it's green, we've selected the object as a whole, meaning I can move the whole thing, I can stretch the whole thing, I can do the whole thing. But sub-selection is where I choose a part of that model, like the vertex, the face or the edges. So I'm going to hold down right click to get to that menu quickly. Now, what you were looking at was the modeling toolkit, which also has the different selections here. If you'd like to just kind of click with it, you can do that. So that's a tool that I don't use it often, but you can. So that's why. Like even if I come over here and check Vert, it'll switch for me. Got it? Okay. Yes. Oh, absolutely. I'm so sorry. Here. Better? Got it. Okay. Okay, so this is where we left off. I'm gonna delete this guy. Before I move on to what's next, is there anything about this that you would like a quick review on? The visor, anything? Definitely the visor, yeah? Definitely the visor. Maybe somebody else wants me to get started on the visor and is just not saying so. That's okay. Thank you, guys. What was that? Great. Did anybody else also get the visor nailed down? Well, then let's do the visor. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, then let's do the visor again. So here's what I'm going to do. Boop, nuked it, deleted it, gone. And that's okay because all of this can be redone. It's fine. So what I'm going to recommend is starting off with a cylinder. Cylinder, guys. I'm going to scooch it up right here. And actually, this is kind of great, a great opportunity to use the front camera right here. I'm going to put it right about the middle to be right in between his eyeballs. Then, using the rotation transform, we're going to rotate it so that it looks like the cylinder is on its side. Yes? Oh, you want to see how to do X-ray vision? Sure. Now, on the camera that you want to use X-ray vision, I recommend an ortho camera for that because otherwise the perspective gets really confusing. So in the front-facing camera, go ahead and make it the full screen so you can see all of your choices up here. Right about here, you're going to see two boxes that are overlapping each other. That's it. If you don't see it, right, like if you're in this view here and you don't see it, that's okay. These little things that look like reeds, I'm going to try to actually draw the image or the icon up here so you can see it. Looks like this. Make it like a line. And then there's like a little box. It looks like a little reed and this is like colored in. That thing that's really hard to see. Those are markers for like, kind of like a folder of icons. So notice how if I click them and they turn into little arrows, it means those are like tabs that we've collapsed and I can open them up again by just clicking it again. So sometimes what I'll do myself is I'll collapse almost all of them, but the ones I care about. And that way it's not cluttered with stuff that we don't need. So if you see a little arrow, it means that you can open them. If you see a little reed, you can close them. Make sense? Cool. Cool, cool, cool. All right. So let's go ahead and rotate this. Now, you can do it by hand, by eyeball, and that's a little rough. So I'm going to recommend going over to our channel box or our attribute editor, both will work, and we just give it a solid 90 for a perfect 90-degree angle. You can type it in and that's fine. But you may have remembered last class period, I did it, but it snapped. It snapped on these like 5-degree fixed numbers. If I hold down J as in Jack, as in job, it'll snap every, what is it, 15 degrees, I guess? Yeah, 15 degrees. You can adjust how often you want to snap that in the setting of the transform, but don't worry about that right now. Let's just let's just get to the visor. It's a lot to figure out. All right, then I'm going to scale this down, and very specifically, I'm going to uniform scale it down. I'm not going to scale it down on one axis and then the other. And I'm certainly not going to try to do something like that. Right? We're not doing that. That's not good, not very complete. So I'm going to uniform scale on all three axes to get the visor approximately the size of Bender's. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm sort of taking the highest point here and the lowest point here, And I think that this is probably more accurate. I think this little double line right here is rendering the underside of his visor with a little bit of perspective. So I'm mostly choosing to ignore that. And now I'm going to like extrude each side out. Now, what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to just scooch this over all the way to one side, and we'll adjust this later. Now I'm going to select half of the faces of this cylinder, right? And holding down Shift to extrude, I will just push it out. I'm going to stop in the middle because I do want a center line all the way. If you don't do that, that's okay. You can add one later if you really want it. It's not really the end of the world. And I'm going to hold down Shift and do it again. And oh, I can see that I made the boo-boo, didn't I? Yo, yeah. Look at what I did. I did a naughty. Did a naughty. Okay. Now, I was fortunate enough to catch it, so I can undo and redo it again and see what happened, which I kind of like the idea of. Which I can't do, I guess, because I've got the thing including it. Or let's say I didn't catch it. Control Y? Yeah. So I didn't catch it. How do we fix it? Right? Like how do I fix this problem? Well, I'll show you what I would do. And I think this is a pretty good lesson to sort of take away. Is I'm going to select all of the parts of the geometry that are working for me well, that are working really well. And I'm going to delete. Oh, I'm going to invert the selection. To invert the selection, Control Shift I, and it'll select everything I have not selected, vice versa. See, Control Shift I, Control Shift I, Control Shift I, Control Shift I. I don't usually use that feature unless I'm cleaning up a mesh, and we might be getting there. So I'm gonna just do it right now. Delete. Oh, that's what I did. I did not select the inside fully, did I? I missed it. Do you see what I did? Oops-a daisy. Oops-a daisies. Oops-a daisies. Yeah?
How do they separate out like this, like the others?
What?
Oh, so you did half of the eyeball and
I don't have the eyeballs yet. I haven't made the eyes.
yeah, extruded.
You hold J to rotate it and snap into the right angles. You hold Shift while you move it to extrude it. Okay. All right. So what I could do here is, I mean, whew, that's a doozy, isn't it? I could potentially just delete these guys here and clean it up and rebuild it. I could do that. That wouldn't be the end of the world. Or wouldn't it be cool if I could mirror this? Like I could just take half of it and flip it on the other side. That'd be pretty cool, right? All right, so I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. Bye-bye, bad side. Bye-bye, bye-bye, missing face. And also what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and finish the problem of the mesh here, at least in the front side. Oops, Daisy. Because I'd like for this to be capped in the middle, not left open like that. So it's to kind of get back to where we were. So I'm going to select these two edges right here that are open, and I'm going to do something called a bridge. I'm going to bridge it. A bridge, I believe, lives under Edit Mesh, right below Bevel. It also lives right here in this icon, right next to Bevel. So if I just click that right there, hopefully it'll just draw a face between those two edges. I love that. Love that very much. Now, almost are we there yet? Like we kind of want this to be similar, and bridge is not going to work quite the same way because what it's going to do is it's going to fill in those faces, right? But not in a pattern that I can do a lot with right now. So I don't want to do that. So I'm going to prepare this side right over here to be fixed. Now, guys, you probably don't have to do all of this because you didn't make the same mistake I did, but I actually love showing you how to fix these mistakes because you will make them eventually, right? So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is basically recreate the same pattern, right? Where I take the faces here and this time make sure I got all of them. Oh dear, that would have been a disaster, wouldn't it? Okay, where I this is the pattern I'm trying to create, right? So how do I do that? Well, first off, there's an edge loop across this way here, right? So I'm gonna recreate that. Select these two edges and let's do a connect. We can do connect. Easy breezy. Cool. Then these guys all kind of come to a point right here, don't they? Okay. So I'll show you how we can do that, I think, kind of quickly, where excuse me, if I select all except for these guys right here, I can do an extrusion from there and then weld those verts together. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use my scale tool because when I extrude from a scale, it kind of does this nice little invert here. Now these guys right there, those don't look so good, right? I kind of want them to come to a point in the middle, and I'm going to get there. I'm going to select those edges and then use this guy right here called merge to center. Whoop. Now, wouldn't it be cool if I could stitch this little dot to this little dot? I'm going to do that. I'm going to move this guy to here, and I'm not going to do it just by moving it over. No, not the same. Not the same, but almost. I'm going to take the target weld tool right here. It's right next to this thing called the multi-cut target weld. And then what I can do is I can drag a vert to a vert and they become one. And just like that, I can kind of recreate the same pattern. Now, granted, that was kind of a roundabout way to get there, but mistakes happen. Target weld are going to be good friends. The bridge is going to be a good friend to you. And I think that's a perfect example of how to get mostly there again. Now, out of curiosity, do you guys think that it's faster for me to power through and fix it like I did, or just start over? Just start over. You'd be surprised how often that's true. And I know how like uncomfortable it is, a feeling when you're like, oh shit, I just got it there. Like I finally figured out the extrusion. Oops. So I would have started over, but all of those little handy tools to get back to square one is super important for context. Yeah.
Press the base and click on it, and just a half of it, and there's just separate on it because it shows like this.
It shows the eyes. You keep saying it shows the eyes. I'm not sure I understand. Mm-hmm. Extrude? Extrusion. Okay, let's talk about extrusion for just a moment. Okay. Now, we're going to delete this. Ooh, nicked. And I'm also going to delete the visor again here. Bye. Delete. Okay. Now, to extrude on a cube, pretty straightforward stuff. When you extrude a face, holding down shift, hold down shift. That's how to extrude a face. Now, you can also extrude edges, which can be a little confusing. You never want to extrude an edge off of a closed mesh because the normal will only face one side. This is what we call non-manifold geometry. That's that error. We don't want that. Maybe, I'm sure that it was probably what you clicked. Maybe you clicked faces a little funky when we pulled it. You're not extruding.
Actually,
That's not extruding. You're just moving it. Hold shift, hold down shift, and then move it. There you go. Now, what is happening though, you've got some stuff you missed. I made the same mistake, or you didn't check the what you selected behind it. So go ahead and undo that. Okay, now really quickly, before we just extrude, notice that on your mesh, you did not select all of these guys here. See that? So that's going to be why you're going to have those errors. So make sure you got it all selected. And what we do is we hold down shift, hold it down, and then engage with that gizmo, whichever one it is, whether it's move, rotate, or scale. Okay, so now, well, okay, so like don't extrude an edge. When do we extrude an edge? Extruding an edge is totally fine on an open mesh, as if a face was missing. Then we can extrude edges. And that is really, really handy stuff. Really handy stuff. Right? So extrusion is super powerful. You can extrude edges when the mesh is open. You extrude faces when the mesh is closed. Any questions? All right, cool. All right, let's nuke that. Come back to the body right over here. Now, quick review, cylinder. Just gonna move that puppy up here. Okay. We're gonna rotate it. If I hold down J while I rotate, it will snap it. Oops, Daisy, hold down J. We're gonna uniform scale the whole thing. Good job, everybody, good job. Move it on over. I think I'm also gonna move it to the front. There we go. Make it about there. About there. Okay. Select the faces, give her a quick tumble. See? And if we need to, we can look at that X-ray vision just to make sure, give it a little quick little tumble, make sure we didn't miss anything or oh, like I did. I missed those on the side. Okay. And then holding shift, move it over. Pretty good. Okay. Cool. Now, let's see here. Undo it and do it again. Yeah. So what I showed you is like, if you make a mistake like that, there are ways to fix it. That entire way I showed you guys of pulling and merging and all of that. And I asked the class, right? What is faster? Just redoing it or powering through it? So that is going to be a little bit your philosophy as you figure stuff out. Should I keep going or should I start over? Up to you, but I'll tell you in this case, just starting over. Tumbling a cylinder to redo maybe 2 more steps is going to be faster. Okay, cool. I see some furrowed brows. Are we okay? Okay to move on? Well, okay. Okay. How can I help you? What's the menu we lost?
It should have,
This should have what? What are we looking for?
should be able to edit the number of. Attributes.
Should you can do that. That would be the attribute editor, and you probably want to edit. I think I can't remember if it's polycylinder 4 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are the subdivision of those are if you're looking for that.
That exactly.
Well, you don't want to be using those menus moving forward because we're going to do something called deleting history where you won't have them anymore. So we'll talk about that in a bit, but it's okay. So got it? All right, wonderful. Moving on? Okay, great. I apologize, everybody. Thank you for your patience. Now, what I'm gonna do next is we're gonna make room for the eyeballs, but wouldn't it be nice if we could get at least a little bit of this sort of detail to match a little bit more his visor shape, right? I believe this is always a good idea to kind of get that silhouette to feel correct. So I'm gonna start by just kind of scooching this up a little bit, scooching this down a little bit. And wouldn't it be cool if we could do that with like a kind of symmetry feature where when I edit one side, the other side will also behave. I love this idea for us. So that's what we're going to do. In the poly modeling toolkit, what we're going to do is we're going to go down to where it says symmetry and where it says off, we're going to go ahead and choose which axis we want this to be cylindrical on. Now, there's 2 categories, well, 3 really, but we're going to talk about 2 categories, one being the object and one being the world. The object is basing off of where the axis or the pivot is of each individual object. So if I moved it to a different point in the world, that pivot follows. The world axis is basing it off of X, Y, Z in the entirety of 3D space. Now, I can tell you that since this is in center, world axis will work fine. But since I also didn't change the pivot and didn't, oh, maybe I did move it. Let me find out. How to check. When I look at the object mode, look at the pivots over here, not the center, not the center. So we would want to edit world axis, not object, because it wouldn't behave very well. It'd be kind of funky. But if we wanted to center our pivot though, wouldn't that be nice? because I moved the whole cylinder over and then moved it over. So how do I fix it? Well, right over here next to where it says delete by history type, you've got this little axis right there. That will center the pivot onto your object. Bing, bing, boom. Perfect. And I also notice that I'm slightly off Z perfectly. If I hold down X, it'll snap to the grid. So I'm going to take my verts here and I'm going to also snap them to the grid. And now safe to say I've got kind of a perfectly symmetrical mesh, at least mostly. You can also hit the letter D as in dog to manually edit your pivot if you'd like. Then just hit it again to toggle it off. But I'll say though that center to pivot is a real handy tool. Center pivot. Cool. All right. So now as I have it, either world or object will both work on this. Oh, symmetry. Now, X, Y, and Z. We really have to pay attention to which axes is which when we're using tools like this. So to figure it out, right, how to know which axis you're working in is like, let's look at this like bottom corner of your viewport here. You've got a little green, red, and blue like world axis sort of little gizmo down here. Now, as I turn it, notice how it turns also. The direction that the lines are going are the positive value, implying that where there is no axes is the negative value, okay? So that means if I were to look at a front view, like I do here, and the X is going this way, which way is X negative? This way, okay? Now, when we're doing the symmetry tool, it won't matter positive and negative, but it will when we use a mirror tool, okay? So let's say that I want to use the X axes to have my symmetry here. And now if I select half, hopefully, no. All right, world, it's world X. There we go. Hey, she listens. She listens. What if I pick over here? Still listens. Symmetry. Now I'm gonna just kind of do a little bit of house cleaning here, give it a little bit that kind of little oblong shape his visor has. Just a little bit. I won't be mad at you if you don't. You know, it's okay. I'm a stickler for detail. I feel like it's the difference between really strong professional work and just kind of phoning it in, you know? I won't mark you down on a grade though if you don't do some of these extra steps here. All right. So now we kind of have a little bit closer to Bender's silhouette. Cool. Looking good. All right. Next up, how do I make room for his eyeballs? Yeah. It's not on the middle line. Okay. So here's what you can do. You can take the edge of it. I'm going to turn off symmetry. By the way, you're going to want to learn to toggle off those features because when you don't want them on, it's like really frustrating. But let's say here you've got a situation that's a little bit more like this, like that. Is that what we're looking at? I'm asking. Now, what you can do is you can hold down X while you move it and it'll snap it to the grid. And that gets me back to 0 pretty easily. And let's say that, you know, it's not symmetrical for you. So if I delete half of it and I were to mirror it, that would reset its symmetry. That would make it symmetrical again. We could do something like that. Okay, so let's center the pivot. Good job. Good job. What we'll do is we'll take this line here, hold down X, snap it to there. That's good. That's good. And I think you're good at that point. Yeah. Symmetry tool. Symmetry lives in the modeling toolkit right here. Right here. Yeah, very hard to see. Agreed. Yeah. Try symmetry world. Try world X. It did that for me too. Sometimes it just does that. All right, but let's say though that like we did not really have a symmetrical thing because we weren't paying attention. Totally happens to the best of us. And we want to reset, make it symmetrical again. I decide to delete half of it, usually the problem half, and I keep the half that I want to mirror. Now, to do this is going to come in handy for Bender because you might do it for his arms and legs, or any piece really that you're like, oh, I really just want that again and don't want to do all that work. So we're going to take this here, and I want you to notice that I have the pivot still set to 0, and I'll show you what happens if I don't. Let's just center it here. It's okay, nothing's wrong. I can fix it later if I really want to change that. We know how to edit it. But this is an important distinction. So object mode, select the thing that you want to mirror, right? Make sure it's green when you have it selected. Then head to Mesh Mirror. Do not click Mirror. I know a lot of you guys like to just run ahead and click it. Now here's the thing. We have 3 axes, and each axis has 2 directions. That is 6 possible outcomes that setting will be on. And you have a 1 in 6 chance that it's right. 1 in 6 chance. Don't just click mirror. Maya doesn't know which one you want to mirror. It doesn't know. We have to tell her. So instead of just clicking mirror, make sure you go to the dialog box. Looks like a little checkbox right next to it. And here we get to tell it what we want it to do. Don't want to cut geometry. Here are options. And I want, well, actually, fine, we'll leave it alone. What we want to do here is I want to select whether I want it on the world or the object. Okay. Now, based off of what I described in my very dry lecturing that you guys are trying so hard to stay awake with, I can see it. Which of these should I use, a world orientation or object orientation based off of where the pivot lives on my mesh? Which one? World. Very good. Very good. Okay. I want it to be on the world, and I want it to mirror from this direction to this direction. How do I find the axes? How do I find it? Very good. Okay. Which direction, according to the bottom left corner on the front view, is this way? X positive, specifically. X negative is the opposite direction, right? The line is going from this way to this way. So that's positive, making this negative. Okay. So what I need to do is I need to hit world X positive. Apply. Bravo. No mistakes. Undo. I accidentally didn't change that. What will happen, you think? Oops. That's the difference. It will use the pivot of the object when you use object. Okay? All right. No worries, no worries, don't panic, don't panic. What if then I have this correct, but I use negative? I used a negative, oopsie. Apply, oh, it like nuked it, it like deleted it because it's taking where no information is and saying, hey, no information. So don't want that. All right. And what happens if I use Y? Nothing, because it's already mirrored in the Y. What if? Oh, wait. Here's what happens. World Y. Made it down here. See? Okay. So that's how you use these settings, is that you adjust which axes, which direction, based off of the object, based off of the world you choose. Okay. So in that case, we want world X positive, apply, call it good. Now, if you get some funky here where maybe maybe you've got verts that are close together but not welding. Here, let me come back here. And I'm looking at something like this. When I do it, it's okay. Mesh, mirror, world, X positive, apply. Notice how it's still created some of that geometry between here and here. It's taking a lot of liberties, isn't it? I'm gonna hit apply. Oh, that's kind of weird. But if I lower the threshold of this to be 0.01 or so, it's going to respect how far away that needs to be. So if I increase the threshold, it'll start to take in more, but too big and you might actually accidentally merge stuff together you don't want. So what I prefer to do in terms of good practice with this is I try to get these to match as close as I can on the grid before engaging with the mirror tool like that. That way, when I use it, I can set this threshold to like practically 0 and it'll respect it to weld it as I need it to be. Okay. So that is like more of a best practices application. You might not have seen it right away, but it might come up to haunt you a little later. In which case I'll just remind you and the lesson will be solidified. Okay, next up, we're gonna make some room for Bender's eyeballs. I'm gonna select, I sometimes have trouble, like we can select all of this. This is tedious AF. I don't want to do it. I hated doing every step of that. You could do that. You could select on the side here and then deselect the negative. That works. You could double click the whole thing and then deselect the negative. That's probably the fastest. Could select the negative and invert it, Control Shift excuse me, Control Shift I. Either way will get you there, but I just really hate doing this. I hate this. I wouldn't blame you if you also hated it. Okay? Cool. Now, based off of the tools that you know, how do I make a shape kind of going inside of Bender's visor? You guys know how to do this. You know how. Extrude. Extrude inward. Using specifically the scale tool. Now, if I were to use the scale tool here, holding down Shift, that will work mostly except for this really particular issue that I take with it. Now, hey, it worked, right? I held down Shift and I extruded it in. But notice the difference between the distance of this edge here, how tiny that is, and this edge here, and how large that is. Like, it extrudes it in, but because it's not a perfectly round shape, it's not really uniform here. Like this distance and this distance don't match. I don't like that. And some of you won't either. We do want to extrude it. Now, what you could do this, is you could extrude it in, right? And then maybe compensate by just bringing it down on the axis a little bit further and eyeballing it. That'll get you most of the way there. And I certainly wouldn't notice. So that's one way to do it. Or we use the extrusion tool and we plug in a value in thickness. 0.01 probably? Nah, 0.05. No, not thickness, offset, 0.05. Yeah, there we go. Now that is uniform all the way around. And I often like machine precision when I'm doing things like machines. So it's up to you which path you'd like to follow. Now this is a little bit intense. That's probably a little too much for Bender. So let's do a smaller number, 0.025. That's looking pretty good. 0.025 to get that. Yeah. I didn't go to a rotate tool. Extrude. I'm using extrude. Extrude, hit the extrusion tool. Yeah. Select the faces that you want to extrude, right? Like in the case, the front of his visor. Click this extrude tool. And then type in on the offset 0.025. Yeah. I could have done this to half of it and then mirror it. I could have done that. I don't love that in this case, I think, because if you wanted to do the holding down Shift extrusion, it's going to be based off of the pivot of the selection, which is going to be offset to the center of the whole visor. So, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. To answer your question quickly, yeah, you could do that. But all of these like other implications, yeah. You don't need to wave me down like you're channeling down a plane. I can see you. Uh-huh.
The robot.
We're not there yet, and I'm gonna teach everybody to do that. And also, I'm gonna ask you to reconsider the visor, because what you've done is you've shrunk down a cylindrical shape, which I was pretty explicit that is incorrect. Like, what we're not gonna do is take this and squeeze it. No, no. What we're going to do is we're going to take half of it, hopefully if I do this correctly, and extrude it. That's what we're doing. Okay, well, then we can attempt, we can make a few other attempts, but you're not further ahead. You have to redo some of the work you currently have. So before we jump ahead, all right? Okay, next up. Okay, now okay, this is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this. Now, while I got these guys selected, how do I push them in? How do I push them in? Come on, somebody other than Lena. You got the answer right last time. What do I do? Hold shift, extrude. Very good. So I'm going to hold down shift, not cap locks, and push it in. That'll work. Now I'm not going to push it like kind of all the way. I'm also going to make it a little bit smaller, right? You'll see why in a moment. How this looks. So we're going to have to take some artistic liberty here because his visor, while it appears kind of flush with the whole of his body, we can do that. We can bring it in just a little bit for considering for shortening, right? That in perspective, it's going to be bigger as it gets closer to the camera. And we also want to make sure that the edges on the back are not popping out, right? So I'm going to just squeeze those in and we're going to call that a day. So it might be a little aggressive for his visor, but I think it holds true to the spirit of the design. I saw your hand go up. What was there?
I think, and how did you increase the size like this?
I scaled it down. Yep. Yep. Okay. Now that I have all of these here, what I'm going to do a thing. I'm going to select all of them and make them all smooth, except for the front of his visor. I will make hard edges. Now what this does is that it kind of makes like a shape inside that feels like it's all shaded very smoothly. And if you look at the way his material looks, at least in the reference, it's basically a black void. I think we could get away with it in this case. Now, if you don't really like how some of that is shading inside where it's like, ooh, it's a little weird. The selection of these guys here, deselect the back. We can just scale it down a little bit, assuming I'm not accidentally selecting stuff behind it. That'll help with some of that. Pulling it forward just to kind of give it a softer curve, or adding edge loops in there will help too. But again, you're not going to really see that shading when we do the material later. So we'll be breezy with this. Yeah. You're looking at a wireframe? Like that? Hit 5. So what you accidentally did, you hit the number 4 probably. Now hit the number 5. Sure, it happens. So hit the number 5 and it'll come back. So to smooth all of it, I selected the whole object, and you'll find these under Mesh Display, Harden and Soften Edges. I've saved those to my shelf though. I don't like going to them all the time. So soften edge all of them, and then select by double clicking these two here to give it a hard edge. And that will give you this look. Now, we learned on the body though, that ideally we want it to look good if it was all shaded. And we can do that here by adding edge loops around the parts we would like to have a harder edge. Now, this is some of the foundational understanding of how to model for hard surface modeling. So if you're interested in doing mech, machines, guns, cars, know this lesson at the start of your career, which is right here and right now. And that is to add either a bevel or edge loops around that space, okay? So I'll start with a bevel. Let's just do a bevel, quick type bevel. There we go. I'll give it 0.01, a little tighter. Give it 2 instead of 1 segment. I'm gonna do a 0.05. No, 0.1. 0.5. That 0.5 is fine. So, well, 0.3. I don't know. 0.3 feels good. 0.3 with 2 segments here. And then what happens when this is all smooth is you get this nice highlight around around his edge instead of that hard, sharp line, which by the way, doesn't exist in like anything in this room if you think about it. Not at the corner of the desk. It's too smooth for that. Unless somebody has like a razor sharp D6 or something, we don't have that really sharp 90-degree angle. Yeah.
I have this here, but.
Well, right. Front view is always locked. You don't rotate in front view. Click on here.
Oh,
Can you navigate now?
this one, yes.
Yes.
Uh,
You've never been able to here.
I can see it, here.
It's okay.
Is that
That's fine.
okay?
Okay.
I just get really virtual and close to different ways. Look like different for yours.
It does. I'm going to recommend that we review the content that was recorded or I help you during lab time. All right. Okay. So, next up. How do you what? Soften edge. Lives under mesh display, harden and soften edge. You can do that per edge or you can do the whole object at once, which is what I did. Okay. Yes. I mean, I find that to be true almost all the time when you kind of eyeball it, but yeah. Correct.
That's okay.
Right, right. So this is what I covered in the recording and you'll see it when you go back. But if you do it by hand, it won't be even. Otherwise, you want to use the features in the tool itself. So instead of holding down shift and calling it a day, use the extrude here. Like, let me show you. I'm gonna just do it really quick so, so that you guys can see. Right? Right. Holding down shift while you do this is uneven. That's what I talked about. It's just uneven. If you want it to be even, use the extrusion tool and an offset, give it a value. I think I did 0.25 or 0.025. 0.05,
Point 025.
that was a little tight because it's so much bigger, but I think 0.25 is what I did after I scaled it down to his size. But you'll see here now, like this is so much more even all the way around, right? That's how you get that difference. Okay, cool. Yeah. I scaled it down. I literally scaled it down from the back. Like I took this guy and scaled it, and then I took the back pieces back here and scaled it down. You bet. Okay. Now let's get his eyeballs in here. Let's get his eyeballs. Now, his eyeballs are obviously have a pixel for a pupil. So we're not going to emulate quite that. You can in the material when you paint it. I'm going to show you what I would do for human eyes though. And the material, we could still have that square pixel. Like, don't get me wrong. I love that. I think it's very, very on brand. So, but there's just when it comes to an eyeball, almost in any case from whether it be alien or animal or a person, usually there's a pupil in the center, whether it's a circle or not, right? And human eyes are more circular, so that's what we're going to play with here. So I'm going to start off by saying we're going to just make a sphere, right? We're going to make a sphere. Now, I'm going to rotate it forward so that what looks like would be a pupil is facing front. Do you have to in this case? No, you don't, but in almost every occasion I have, and it's helped me in the material. Whether I'm making a proper pupil and it's photorealistic, or even if it's cartoonish, the pulling of those geometries seem to impact the material some, and I prefer it to stay that shape. So I always rotate it forward. It's good practice, but since it's a ball, and you wouldn't be able to tell otherwise, it's kind of sneaky if you don't. I mean, if you don't do it, I won't mark you down. But it's considered good practice to go ahead and make that center point the pupil. Now I'm going to scale it down so it matches the approximate size and scale, the scale of Bender's eyeball. Quick pop quiz, sort of. If I want to make something smaller, what transform do I use? Uniform scale, because I can uniform move things as well. Okay, or rotate. Okay. Now, something else. If you don't see the geometry, I delete it. That's me personally. You don't have to here, like let's say if we were going to animate the eyeball to look around, we'd want to keep the geometry in the back because as you turned the eyeball, more would be revealed, right? In this case, though, not the case. So I am going to delete about half of the geometry and we're going to have hemispheres here. So to do that, you can just select by kind of clicking and dragging, but my preferred way, this is my little tricky, is that I will ring select or loop select all the way around and then double click the piece I want to get rid of. I love that trick. It's been a hack that's helped me kind of get quickly through cleaning of meshes. One more time. Select. Oops, select, double click. Over here. To get this ring select one more time, you hold down shift and double click next to the face that you want to follow. That's all you got to do. Okay, now I'm going to move this back. And I think I'm going to kind of make it a little bit smaller so that we don't have anything extruding outside of his face. That's pretty good. Move it over a little bit, maybe a little bit down, maybe a little bit bigger. Maybe a little bit auga. I don't know, whatever you want to do, play with it. Next up, I want this to match over here, but I don't want to do the work of doing it again. What do I do? What's that? Yes. You can, but don't do that because it clones it, making it an instance, and you want to duplicate, not clone. Now, yes, you had a question, or you were going to answer. You don't have to close the hole. Like, it's okay. So, where you would not want to have this here is if it would be visible or rendered, because there's no normal information, the camera won't be able to calculate it. Since it's covered, meaning it's like literally pushed inside other geometry, we don't have that issue. This is totally okay. Totally legal. Good question, though. Now, what you could do if you want to is you could center the pivot and hit Control D as in duplicate and move it over. That will do it for you. But if you clone it, you've got a whole lot of other features. Notice how it just created the geometry and not create like another set of features for it. So we don't want that. Now let's just kind of, we could do that. We can just duplicate it and move it over, or you can use the mirror tool, which you guys have totally learned to do, and it'll keep it clean for you. I'm going to show you the mirror tool one more time though, just for posterity, I suppose. Mirror right here. We want, let's see, X on the positive. So X positive world apply. There we go. Fantastic. And we have a Bender eyeball. Bender eyes. Cool. All right. Now, I want to keep going, but I also think that we've got a lot of questions coming up. So I think for the next about 20 minutes, I'm going to let you guys do some lab and I'm going to come around and help everybody individually. Do you want me to get this question on the recording? Make 1 minute. Got it. Got it. Okay. All right, everybody. Let's take about a 20-minute lab time. I'm going to come around and help you in your first in line. Okay. Resume recording. Okay, everybody, welcome back. Do me a favor. Move your arms up like this, like you're trying to flag me down. Maybe even do a little W, a little Y, a little W. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, it's tight, right? I know. But first off, it'll wake you up a little bit. Second, it keeps you from having what becomes no butt posture later. We don't want that. We don't want to walk like this for our whole lives. So good, move your shoulders back. Welcome. Thank you everybody for humoring me. I hope that felt good. If you need to ever get up from your desk, you are welcome to. If you just need to, in the middle of my lecture, just come over here and do a squat, you're fine. You're fine to do that. No, I am never offended if you need to move, okay? I do ask that maybe we don't do something like jumping jacks in front of everybody in front. Maybe keep those in the back. But yes, don't forget to move your body. Okay, so looking pretty good, guys. Now, there is a trend happening with everybody in class today that I did notice. If this is you, you've done nothing wrong. But I haven't really covered an important consideration, and that is if you have geometry, you need to unwrap it. And future you is going to need to unwrap this whole bender. And don't worry, I'm going to show you how. However, if you are somebody who has hidden geometry, like let's say a whole capsule in here or a sphere of geometry here, delete it. If you can't see it, there's no need to make yourself unwrap it later. If you're somebody that has geometry in here, like let's say this is closed, something like that, oops, or like this, let's find it and let's delete it. Let's get rid of all that unnecessary geometry. His butt, we will see, so we want to leave that. You know, and this comes up because in my visor, I have a whole bunch of geometry here that I can't see that I don't want to render, right? And that's the back side of his visor, this guy right here. So I'm going to come around here, I'm going to select, I think what I'm going to do is it'll be easier. If I select the inverse, right? Control-Shift-I, delete, okay? Now, you're doing yourself a favor by deleting all of this because later on, when we unwrap, you'll have all this stuff to account for. If you find it while you're unwrapping, though, we can delete it then, too. You don't need to worry about it if you miss this step, right? But I just kind of wanted to tell you to take a quick duster through your room here and make sure that we get rid of anything that we don't need. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, that's what I did. Yeah, leave his butt. Don't delete his butt because we can see his butt. Yeah, delete the bottom of the head. Top of the torso, yeah, if you want to. I think that's a good idea. Now, I have a little bit of a bevel in mind so that if I do delete the top of the torso, we can scale this to like fit inside so like there's a little overlap, right? No gap in between the two. That won't matter though if you've extruded his head from there, then you don't need to worry about deleting it. Okay? Yes. Nope. Okay. All right. Yes.
Back off the eyes, like it.
What?
Back off.
Delete the backs of the eyes? Yes. Very good. Okay. Now, in class today, we're wrapping up. So by the end of class on Thursday, what we need to do is have him finished being modeled, right? When is this being due? This is due on the 27th. We have a week. So it'll be, ooh, yeah, we need to finish everything. All right, let's keep going. Now, his mouth is probably the other thing that's really stressing everybody out. How do we get the teeth to look like that? Okay. All right, let's talk about it. Whenever we're modeling something and there is like a part of it that's just different from the rest of it, like the mouth part, I do something called putting it in prison, putting it behind bars. I know, sounds a little dramatic. I certainly don't mean that because it's different, it should be. I just mean that I need to close this up to be able to edit without harming the rest of the mesh, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate it by dropping in an edge loop right above on the top of the mouth and the bottom of the mouth, right? So I've kind of created like a little box prison here for it. These guys here, actually I think these guys here are really kind of the part of Bender we're worried about right here. This is what we want to do. If I were to delete it, which I'm really not, but this is going to be kind of where his mouth is going to be. This is kind of what I mean. We want to put edge loops around encasing it. I'll say we could go about this a few ways. I think this is what we're going to do. We're going to kind of go a little bit outside the mouth, and we're going to compensate for that and adjust that later. No, we're going to do a little inside the mouth. That's what we'll do, and then we'll push it back. Yes? You'll see when I do it. Okay. So now that we've got this here, let's go ahead and use the extrude tool. I prefer to use the extrusion tool rather than just pushing it back right here, because what it does is it kind of creates a really sharp lip on our bender. Like the angle of that guy is really deep, and I don't want to do that. Angles, right? When you do it based off of the move tool or the rotate tool, that's going to happen because it's basing it off of the center of the pivot, and that regardless of where the rest of the geometry is, it's always going to move towards the center. Yes. Weird. Click off of it, like off of Maya, and then back into Maya and see if she behaves. That sounds like a Windows bug. Did it fix it? Nope. All right, I'm coming.
I just want to go to the face,
Mhm.
and then I go to click it.
Oh, because you have insert edge loop on. I know. I know. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do, we select the faces that we want to extrude, click the extrude tool this time. And we're going to go ahead and add a negative value to the thickness. I put -1 so that we could really see it. And it goes in pretty well, actually. I think it's a little aggressive for how much we're doing there. I think what I'd like to do here is a -0.5. Oop, -0.5. 0.0, sorry, 0.05. There we go. That's better. 0.05. If you would like to make the mouth inside just slightly smaller than the rest, I like to do this in general as a good practice, but it's not really necessary in this case, but let's see. I'm actually thinking, yeah, that's fine. Let's go ahead and add a slight offset value, 0.1. Nah, too much, 0.05, 0.01. There you go. And what it does, it just makes it a little bit smaller in the inside, making the top part or that like lip that we created here a little bit more visible. That's the only reason I'm doing it. Yes, and then I'll go there. Yeah.
Also, control shift the scale or
What?
control shift scale as you.
No control shift, no shift. We're just using the extrude tool right here. Okay. All right. Now, before we move on, I'm also going to add an edge loop around here where his teeth are. Whoop. Whoop. Because while I would say that this is probably more correct to be a rounder shape, we can go ahead and keep it a little boxy here for the sake of simplicity and the assignment. And there's a few ways we can go around this, go about this, right? I could take this inside piece here and we can move it back, but we got a little problem here. Like that requires a lot of careful consideration of the axes that most of us are not practiced enough to do yet. So wouldn't it be nice if I could push this face back without it changing the silhouette of what I have for his whole head? I can do that. If I go over to my mesh tools or my modeling toolkit right here, well, I got this face selected. I'm going to go to transform constraint, and we're going to put on edge slide. Now this is really handy because it'll keep it kind of on the edge for me, right? Love that. But maybe not, well, maybe not the whole thing here. So let's just turn that off. I'll push it. Can I do surface slide? Yeah, it's still doing it along the surface. Whoop. How about I do it with this guy here for, ooh, I just got a better idea. I'm going to undo a bunch of what I did, guys. Yeah, before we do this, let's add that edge loop now. Lesson learned. And I want the face of this guy right here to come back over here without, ooh, oh no. Oh no. I have to select all my verts and do a quick weld so I don't have extras. That's okay. Let's take that edge right here and scooch it back, but we're going to do it on the slide right here. Transform constraint, edge slide. Now that is looking pretty decent for his mouth. However, I'd like it to match on both sides. You guys know how to do this. Let's go to symmetry, world X, and then we're just going to scooch it back just like a little. There we go. Don't forget the sound effects, very important. And now, there we go. I'm going to turn off symmetry, turn off edge constraint. My gosh, it makes you so upset when you're trying to edit like normal and those things are turned on. And now what we'll do, make sure that that's all we've got selected. Don't accidentally select stuff behind you like Renee does. Don't do that. And now we're going to extrude. Extrude. Negative, what did I do? -1, -0.1, -0.5, 0.5. Let's do a slight offset, 0.01, ever so slightly. You could even make that even smaller. -0.03. Yeah, that's nice. Now, I'll let you pick and discern how you want those values to look, but this is sufficient for a bender mouth. That is pretty good. Pretty good. I'll say though that I don't love that his edges here are hard, and we've got like faceting happening around the mouth. So I'm going to select all of the edges there, mesh smooth or soften edge. And if I want these edges to be hard, you can select them individually and then use the harden edge tool. That's fine. That will do it for you, or you can bevel them, which I think looks better. That's what I'm going to do. Well, I have them selected. We're going to bevel. Boop, 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 boop. Bevel, bevel, bevel. Let's do 0.01, 0.1. Great. Smooth. And now that's it smoothed. We've got a nice little highlight around there. Looks pretty good. It's okay if you use the harden and soften edges though, as you like. If it's easier for you, that's fine. You don't need to do the extra step of beveling. I find it to just look a lot nicer when you do. See, that's pretty cool. Nice highlight around there. Very pretty. Okay, any questions? Yeah.
Okay, so I finally got back to the, inverted through part. How do you get the end line?
How do I get that? Okay, here's what I'll do. We're gonna redo the mouth. Bridge. Okay. So I am officially back to square one. Cool? Think so anyway. I think I got some hidden geometry here. Okay, I think now I'm officially down to back to square one. Okay. Now, what it did was we inserted edge loops to match the teeth, right? Because we're going to follow along the side of the mouth, right? And right here, I'm using the front view, these guys right here, they're the closest to the mouth, right? And I want to push them back, but I need to be able to follow along the silhouette of the form. So go to the modeling toolkit, transform constraints, edge slide. And now, if we turn on symmetry, world X, right? I'll be able to edit one while also editing the other. And we're just going to give it a little push, but I don't have to worry too much because it's going to follow along the cylinder's form, okay? All right. Once you've done that, you've gotten a nice little curve here on Bender's mouth, turn off edge constraint, turn off world, X world symmetry, and then select the mouth again where you want the extrusion to happen. Yes, Ali. It's not letting you make a vertical edge loop. Check your verts to see if you have any n-gons. N-gons. Okay. What is an n-gon? What is an n-gon?
And from the side.
Which is specifically more than 4. So you're looking to see if you've removed any edges and left verts behind, making your edges more than quads, like a 5-sided or 6-sided polygon. All right, now let's go ahead and do this extrusion again. Whoop. Thickness is a negative value. I think 0.5, negative 0.05. Sure. And I did an offset. You certainly don't have to. It's way too big. There we go. Just so that you could see that edge a little bit better. Now, to really kind of complete the look, selecting all the areas that you want to actually be a hardened edge all the way around the mouth. Adding a bevel will give you a nice highlight. So we're going to go to bevel. I'll do 0.1. You can add a second one if you want to, that's fine. That will work. Smooth. Smooth everything. And now you got a nice smoothed mouth for Bender. Now, an n-gon can happen if you've added an edge loop, right, and then removed it or something, like they happen. And I can't insert an edge loop here at all. See how I can't do it? If I look at the verts, I've got a bunch of verts floating. You had n-gons. Yep, that's what happens. Okay, I believe it covered that in an earlier lecture. It was like maybe the second time we barreled. Okay, all right. Cool. Now, we have about, I can show you one more. We're gonna do the antenna today, and then we'll call it. Now, for the antenna, I think what will be best here is if we select a part of the top of his head and extrude from it. But you could also take a cylinder or a sphere and extrude from that too. I wouldn't really be upset with you if you did that. It's just it'd be so small, you'd probably barely be able to tell. So I'm going to select the faces here, and I think that that is approximately the side of Bender's. Oh, it's a little big. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get really particular with it. I'm going to insert an edge loop in between the two and select these right there. That's a little bit more correct to me. I'm going to hold down shift and extrude up a little bit. And I'm going to do it again. Hold down shift and extrude up a little bit. But instead of like kind of extruding in, I'll just scale it in to match. Arguably, there's a curve here. I think it's small enough though, we probably won't see it. If you really want to add it, we could do that. Let's add that guy right here and then make it a little bit bigger. That's fine. We can do that. Silhouette is king to me, so I feel that whenever we're spending geometry, we really want to make sure we're spending it on the silhouette. Now, for this part, I'm being really particular in that I think this goes in a little bit, and that really what we're looking at is probably that most innermost circle and extrude out. Give or take, up to you if you want to look at how close you want that pixel, pixel perfect. But before we do anything kind of aggressive, like let's not just pull it up here and call it a day. Make this a little bit smaller and give it that nice little taper. Then what I'll do is I'll extrude again, and then I'm going to start adding a little bit of form here. Yeah, it's great. That's plenty. Now I know that it's not perfectly round, and you could make it more spherical if you'd like, but like, look at Bender when you look at Bender. Can you tell that that's not like a ball on the top? It's really hard to see whether or not you had a low poly mesh there or not, right? So I think that is okay. I'd say follow the same rules with the cylinder that you do the rest of the mesh. If there's any part of it that you want to be a hard edge, either select the edges you want hard and choose harden edge, or bevel it. I showed you guys how to bevel, so I'm gonna select these guys here and make them a hardened edge and let you guys decide what makes the most sense to you for your design philosophies. There we go. Harden. Beautiful. Beautiful antenna. Easy breezy. No big deezy. Okay, when we get back, we are going to finish the arms and feet and hands. And by the end of class, I'd really hoped that we would finish his unwrap into the material too, but I don't think we're gonna have time for that because we had a lot of questions. Okay, so what I'm gonna have you guys do is continue building Bender as far as you can based off of what you've learned. Do you guys think that you could handle the arms and legs without guidance? No. Yeah, you could do that. Now, there is like a fancier way to extrude along a spline and do some fancy cool tool stuff that makes it really awesome. But I guess what I would probably ask you guys to do is try to get the feet, like the legs, and the arms save for Thursday. Yes.
On the top of it, how to use it, a control shift.
Okay, at this point, we have 10 minutes left in class, so we have to finish what we have here. So we're kind of done with lab time at the moment. Let me just get through this and I'll try to help you, okay? All right, so here's what we're gonna do. It's gonna have to probably be the only one we do. I'm doing some homework math in my head right now. We don't have enough time on class on Thursday to get through everything. So we're gonna extend this one day to finish Bender properly. But I think what that means is that I'm going to have to ask something of you guys a little bit. If you are having questions on how to do things that have already been covered, I'm going to start directing you to the recordings because they're taking up so much time in class that we're not able to finish the stuff to keep you guys caught up, right? So if that's you, I want you to be able to ask questions for sure. But a lot of what I'm hearing at the moment is stuff that was covered in like week 1 and like beginning of week 2. So I'm going to start gently nudging you to the recordings. So be kind of like prepared for that in class, okay? I can't quite keep this pace. We're slowing down too much, all right? Okay, so this assignment though, just from the direction this is going, I don't want to rush what we have left on this. I just don't want to do that to you guys. So we're gonna extend this whole assignment. So we have an additional day in class to cover, okay? Is that a good deal? Okay, cool. Cool. So I got this due on Monday. We're gonna make it due on Wednesday. So we'll have Thursday and Tuesday to finish Bender in class, okay? All right, wonderful. Thank you guys, I appreciate your understanding. In class today for your in-class exercise. Gosh, can you believe we're on week 3 already? Week 3 Tuesday?
Actually, week 2.
What's that? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Can you believe that it's week 3 already? Like it's bananas. Bananas. Yeah. So in class today, what I would like you guys to do is I want you to share with me the part of your mesh that you think is the ugliest, the part that you are least happy with. If it's because it's unfinished or if it's something you're having a hard time understanding, all of that is okay. I just want to see what you guys think is the ugliest part of your mesh. Cool? All right. Love it. Love to see it. Once that's posted, I will take attendance and you guys can go and I will see you guys on Thursday.